Hi everyone, it's Nathanial here, and I'm excited to welcome a special guest today, Jon Yeo, who's the licensee of TEDx Melbourne. And we're going to talk today about what are the attributes of a great communicator. A Harvard Business School professor, Amy Cuddy, did a study on first impressions, and it came down to two questions. First question was, can I trust this person? And the second question was, can I respect this person? And interestingly, these are exactly the same questions for any public speaker. The ability to communicate as a leader needs to be put down to these two questions. If it's the first time they've had you on a day-to-day basis, your message might get through, but how do you design for that? And so we're here today to talk about that with TEDx speaker Jon Yeo, and at the end we're going to tell you about an event we're going to be running in Melbourne where Jon's actually going to be able to help leaders and communicators develop these skills for themselves. So welcome, Jon. Would you mind just giving a 2-minute overview of when you started TEDx Melbourne and what made you decide to do so?
Sure. I might also go up slightly above that and just give people a general idea of TED. Some people, believe it or not, 50% of the audiences I speak to still have not heard of TED. So TED began as a conference about 35 years ago, built around the concept of an idea worth spreading. Types of people been on that stage have been like Al Gore or Dalai Lama. And they're mostly known now for their talks that are up to 18 minutes on TED.com. I took over TEDx Melbourne in 2009, so we have a license to have TED-like events in Melbourne. And I took it over from a friend a friend of a friend actually, who decided that year that she needed to either organise the next TEDx Melbourne or her wedding. So I naively put my hand up, and since then have been training speakers to develop great talks, mostly because around that time there wasn't really anyone specialised in doing short talks, and there wasn't really anyone specialised on how do you capture and engage an audience in short periods of time. And because of my history for work, I designed a program around that, and today that's pretty much what I deliver full time.
Excellent. Beautiful. And we all know that there's nothing worse than a boring speaker.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that common mistakes, I guess, that you see, and the key outcomes that you're going to address when you run this coaching program?
Sure. So look, there's a few things that people get wrong pretty much consistently. Most people don't practice nearly enough, and the delivery ends up being a little bit random. And while we like the spontaneity and engagement, if someone goes off on a tangent or they lose their place or kind of ramble a bit, that's when you lose people. And so being prepared when you're delivering a presentation is really, really key. And I think that's the number one issue. And the number one response I get from that is I don't have time to prepare for a talk. And it's a funny one because the question is everyone gets the same amount of time. So the question is, I guess, what are you doing with that time? I, for instance, practice when I'm driving in the car. I might look like I'm probably having a phone call with someone, but hopefully. But the best place to actually practice is in those spare moments when you're waiting for the bus, when you're driving in the car. Get it under your belt as much as possible. And which usually leads to a third question is, well, doesn't it sound wooden? And my response to that is that if you look at any Academy Award winner, that script is completely written down by whoever the script writer was, and it never looks like it's wooden because that actor has practiced it so much, and that's the key.
Yeah, I think I read you say somewhere, if you don't have time to practice your talk, do you have time to clean up the mistakes when you get your communication wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a false economy. I think, I'm not saying you practice to nth degree every single time. There are certain times you practice more than others. Let's pretend you've been asked to do a talk on what you do at work. If you're giving a talk to your local kindergarten, you probably don't need to do much preparation. But if you get asked to do that exact topic, what do you do at work, and you're giving that to the chairman of the board of your company, you might want to put a bit more effort in. And so you've just got to be judicial about how you spend your time and how you prepare. But you're exactly doing that. You're cleaning up the mess afterwards.
Yeah, right. And what are some of the other things that you're going to cover with the coaching that you're going to be delivering? Given that it's not just for speakers, it's going to be for leaders as well. Anybody that needs to have effective communication under their belt. I mean, so many different contexts in business I can think of. What are some of the other things that are important to cover? Do you think?
Yeah, no, really good point. When we're communicating, it really comes down, and this is whether you're a speaker on stage or in a meeting, it comes down to two things. Is the information relevant to that person? If it's not relevant, they're not going to listen. And the other end of that spectrum is engagement, the ability to hold someone's attention. Now, at the relevance end, it's mostly the domain of teachers, lecturers, coaches, and we're all familiar with how they work, but they're not the most memorable people. At the other end of the spectrum, we've got actors, performers, musicians, comedians. They get engagement, but they're not trained, to teach anyone anything. So the TED model has been very effective in terms of creating that blend. How do you maintain that relevance and engagement? And so what we'll be doing throughout the training is really helping people understand the structures underneath that they can build on, that allow them to articulate that message in a relevant and engaging way.
Well, that's awesome. I'm personally very excited to attend the training. I'll be there myself, to be able to, pick up on the anatomy of a TED Talk and how to be more engaging as a speaker, to learn from one of the organizations that does it the best is really exciting for me as a speaker and a communicator. It's on the 28th of February, so not too far away now. There will be a link below the video to go and register for that. I encourage you all to take advantage. This is the first time that this has actually been offered in Melbourne, and I'm not sure if we'll be doing it again or not, but so it could be a once in a lifetime opportunity to get involved.
Yeah, I probably people were wondering why it's the first time I've ever done it to public, and I've done it a lot, obviously, to corporate. I've been doing it for years for corporate, but I've never done this to the general public. And the primary reason was that I didn't feel at the time that I had a way to effectively share this at a scale, because I've previously done this one-on-one. And so what I've done now is I've created a way that I can create interactive and engaging groups. This is not going to be sit at the front, hear what I'm going to say, write down lots of notes, go home and you might review them next week. This is actually going to be a little bit hands-on. People are going to be challenged. People are going to be asked to write things down. We will have a moment to interact with each other and workshop these ideas in workshops, so you experientially understanding the types of communication we're trying to create. And because of I've been working in a way to deliver it in that fashion. So this is not a lesson or a lecture. This is definitely a workshop. And if that's the sort of thing that you want, something that's practical, that's effective, that you take away tomorrow and really know that you're going to make an impact, then this is probably the course.
Yeah, and one of the things that, what you said that really stood out to me then, which makes a big difference to some of the other speaking coaching seminars that I've attended, is, they don't account for the fact that every speaker has a different style, and they do things differently. To get that balance between being authentic and having the preparation will work differently for each people. So be able to workshop your own ideas, you're just going to cater more for the specific individual.
Absolutely. People need to discover their own style, the way they deliver, their inclinations in terms of how they prepare, and we allow them to have a framework where they can bespoke that for their own personal use.
Excellent. Okay, well, really looking forward to it, and thanks very much for your time today.
No worries. Chat soon.